She stole $150K, moved into my lake house with her toy boy, then sent me a photo smiling in my robe. She had no idea I owned the cameras I planned the collapse. The spring morning in Charlotte fills my penthouse with crisp air and golden light. I stand by the floor-to-ceiling windows on the 38th floor, watching the city wake up beneath me. The skyline looks different in this light, sharper, clearer, like the truth I'm about to face. I pour my Colombian coffee, the rich aroma filling the space as I settle into my morning routine. 6 years of marriage teaches you patterns. 6 years builds a life you think is unshakable. The laptop screen glows as I check the day's agenda for Whitmore Capital. At 37, I've built something substantial, an investment portfolio that's the envy of Charlotte's real estate market, a reputation for discipline and precision, a life meticulously constructed, brick by brick. The email notification chimes. I expect it's from my assistant, maybe about the downtown development project we're closing this week. Instead, the sender's name freezes me mid-sip. Lena Rourke. My wife. Subject line. Moving on. I click it open, and there it is. The image that will divide my life into before and after, Lena wrapped around a young man with tousled blonde hair. They're standing on the deck of my Lake Norman property, the $2-3 million retreat I purchased last year. My dream realized after a decade of work. He's wearing my shirt. Her arm is snaked around his waist in a gesture of possession I recognize all too well. Behind them, the lake shimmers, like nothing has changed. The message beneath the photo is brief, almost casual in its cruelty. This house is mine now. I've moved in with Troy. Don't waste time fighting it. My name is on the papers. No explanation, no apology. Just a statement of fact delivered like a business transaction. I set down my coffee cup with a steady hand that surprises me. Type 4 words. Are you sure about this? After sending it, I immediately block her number, her email, her social media, everything. Then I walk to my home office and access the security system I installed at the lake house, the cameras I insisted on. Despite Lena calling me paranoid, there's no trembling, no shouting, no breakdown. Just a dangerous stillness I recognize from business negotiations that are about to turn ruthless. I had loved her once. Believed her weekend creativity retreats at the lake house were exactly what she claimed, time to rediscover her inspiration after putting her interior design career on temporary hiatus. Now I know better. It was all a lie. I scroll back through the footage from the past 3 months, watching the evidence of deception unfold with clinical detachment. The signs I'd overlooked now seem blindingly obvious. Trips with vague itineraries and floating return dates, late-night whispered calls on the balcony when she thought I was asleep, the way she barely looked up from her phone when I told her about closing an 8-figure deal, the biggest achievement of my career. The security footage tells a story in brutal detail. Lena sneaking Troy into the house after dark on the exact night I was in Atlanta, closing a major acquisition. The two of them drinking coffee on the dock where I'd once sketched the initial designs for the property. Her wearing a silk nightgown I'd never seen before. Him standing in my office fiddling with my printer, opening my private liquor cabinet. And then the balcony camera capturing Lena, placing her hand on Troy's chest, kissing him, and then deliberately removing her wedding ring and tossing it into the lake with a flick of her wrist. 6 weeks ago, a detail catches my eye. Lena accidentally drops a thin folder from her purse. I pause the footage and zoom in, recognizing the Dominion RE logo, the real estate company owned by Miles Hartman, a former competitor who had betrayed me years ago. I can't yet confirm the connection, but something shifts inside me. This isn't just infidelity. This feels orchestrated. I enhance the image further, examining a document that had fallen partially out of the folder. It bears the markings of an investment contract with a signature at the bottom, one that looks unmistakably like mine. A digital scan of my signature, but I've never signed anything for Dominion. The realization settles like ice in my veins. Lena hasn't just stolen my trust, she may be stealing my company. I spend the entire night with my eyes fixed on the security footage, the blue light of the monitor casting shadows across my study. The coffee has gone cold beside me, but I don't notice. Sleep isn't an option, not when my life is unraveling frame by frame before my eyes. The timestamp counter in the corner marks my descent. 11 p.m., 2 a.m., 4:30 a.m. I rewind and replay, scrutinizing every movement, every conversation, piecing together the months of deception like a prosecutor building a case. January's footage shows Lena arriving alone at the lake house. She makes a show of bringing her sketchbooks, her expensive drawing pencils, even that vintage drafting table I'd bought her for our anniversary. I watch her now with new eyes, how she casually sets up her creative studio by the windows, overlooking the water, but hardly touches any of it. Instead, she spends hours on her phone pacing the deck, looking expectantly toward the road. February brings the first appearance of Troy. The timestamp reads 2:14 a.m. when he first slips through the back door. I freeze the frame studying this stranger who's been sleeping with my wife, young mid-20s at most. Blonde hair falling across his forehead. Expensive watch catching the low light. Lena greets him with champagne, the Dom Perignon I'd been saving for our anniversary. They laugh as the cork pops, and she pulls him close for a kiss that makes my stomach turn. By March, the dynamics have shifted entirely. Troy no longer sneaks in like a thief. He arrives in broad daylight, grocery bags in hand, punching in the door code himself. One clip shows him reprogramming the garage door opener, changing the security passwords on my system, walking around my property like he owns it, because in his mind, he already does. I watch him enter my office, rifling through my papers, opening file cabinets, photographing documents with his phone. Each violation makes my jaw clench tighter, but it's a clip from late March that makes me stop breathing altogether. Lena paces by the floor-to-ceiling windows, phone pressed to her ear, unaware that every word is being captured by the high-end microphones I'd installed throughout the house. He doesn't suspect anything. She says, her voice casual as if discussing the weather. I'll handle the rest of the financial agreement this month. The lawyers won't look twice if it's spread out properly. Me. The husband she's discussing like I'm nothing more than an obstacle to be managed. I note down the date, time, and exact wording in a document titled Evidence. The word feels strange. Evidence against the woman I've slept beside for 6 years. The woman I once believed was the best part of my life. At 6 a.m., my eyes burning from the screen's glare, I call Brent Holloway. We've been friends since our dorm room days at Duke before he became my corporate attorney and the executor of my estate. If there's anyone I trust with this nightmare, it's him. Jesus Christ, Dylan. He says when I finish explaining, his voice is thick with sleep but sharpening quickly with each word. How much access does she have to your accounts? Your business holdings? Too much. I admit the reality of my vulnerability setting in joint checking savings investment portfolio. Her name is on the lake house deed as a co-owner. I wanted her to feel secure. That was dangerously generous, Brent sighs. But here's what you need to remember. Even though Lena's name is on the lake house deed, you both signed a binding contract establishing your exclusive financial ownership. It was part of your tax strategy. Remember, she can't sell, lease, or transfer without your countersignature. A sliver of relief cracks through my rage. So her threat about the house, empty, Brent confirms, but that doesn't mean she can't cause damage. Send me everything you have, all the footage, financial records, everything. I'll prepare the lawsuit, eviction notices, and account freezes immediately. I email him the entire security archive, organizing it meticulously with timestamps and brief descriptions of what each clip contains. The morning light is breaking through the blinds by the time I hit send with the message, I want her removed immediately. No mercy. Consider it done. Brent responds. No hesitation. This is why he's my attorney. Next, I turn to my financial accounts. 6 years of marriage meant entrusting Lena with access to nearly everything I log into my business and personal banking portals, methodically examining every transaction from the past 6 months. That's when I see it, $153,000 missing. Not in one lump sum that would have triggered fraud alerts, but in smaller withdrawals. $5,000 here. $7,500 there scattered across 5 months. Just below the threshold that would require my personal authorization. The recipient for all these transactions. TM Holdings registered to a P.O. box in Gastonia, a small town just west of Charlotte. My hands shake with rage as I forward the information to Brent, who responds within an hour. TM Holdings was incorporated 8 months ago, 2 months before the first suspicious transaction. The listed director and sole shareholder, Troy Maddox. The revelation hits like a physical blow. Lena wasn't just sleeping with Troy. She was systematically financing his shell company with my money. My hard-earned capital was funding their futures while they laughed at me from my own dock drinking my champagne. I want options. I tell Brent during our follow-up call. My voice so controlled it sounds alien even to me. Every legal avenue to destroy them both. I want them left with nothing. Brent outlines our counterattack with the clinical precision that makes him worth every dollar of his exorbitant retainer. First, we file a civil eviction notice against Lena, co-owner or not. She has no residency rights given the financial power structure you established. Second, we freeze TM Holdings accounts immediately on suspicion of money laundering. We can prove unauthorized transfers from your accounts. Third, we prepare charges for financial fraud and abuse of authority. With the video evidence of Troy accessing your office and documents, we add corporate espionage to the mix. Execute all of it, I reply, feeling the first sense of control returning. No warnings, no negotiations, no mercy. The next day, I watch through the security feed as a county sheriff delivers the eviction notice. Lena is lounging on the deck, drinking red wine from my private collection, wearing my old college hoodie, likely the only thing of mine she hasn't discarded or given to Troy to wear. Her face drains of color as she reads the document. She turns to Troy, who's been swimming in my lake, and slams the paper against his wet chest. The microphone picks up her panicked voice. What the hell is this? Then she hurls the wine glass into the water with such force it skips twice before sinking. The camera captures her words clearly as she rounds on Troy. You said we were safe, Troy. You promised he wouldn't know until we were ready. Troy's face shows the first flicker of fear I've seen from him. Good, it's just the beginning. 2 days later, Brent calls with an update. Troy tried to withdraw $50,000 from TM Holdings this morning. The account's frozen. He made quite a scene at Charlotte National before security escorted him out. I've got a contact at the bank. Said the kid was sweating bullets claiming he needed the cash for an investment opportunity that can't wait. That evening, the cameras show Troy packing a single suitcase, his movements jerky with panic. He walks out the front door without a word to Lena, who follows him onto the driveway, her arms wrapped around herself in the evening chill. You can't leave me to deal with this alone. Ah, she screams, but he doesn't even turn around as he throws his bag into the trunk of his BMW, likely paid for with my money, and speeds away, gravel spitting from under his tires. My phone lights up with Lena's calls throughout the night. I decline each one, watching the notification count. Climb 6, 12, 19 missed calls. An email arrives. Instead, the desperation evident in every word. Jason, I mean Dylan, we're adults. You don't need to do this. I just want what's fair. We can talk this out without lawyers. Please call me back. She can't even get my name right. Confusing me with another conquest, perhaps. Or so frantic she's mixing up her lies. I forward it to Brent with 2 words. Lock everything. The next morning, a text from Brent changes everything. Found something you need to see ASAP. A contract signed 3 years ago buried in the archived paperwork from the lake house purchase. It has Lena's signature and a name that should never appear in your wife's paperwork. Miles Hartman. Miles Hartman. My former business partner turned competitor who tried to sabotage my company 5 years ago. The man who nearly bankrupted me before I rebuilt everything from scratch, and now somehow connected to my wife, Miles Hartman. The name hits me like a bucket of ice water. I'm at Brent's office within the hour, pacing across his polished hardwood floors while he lays out the documents on his massive oak desk. The contract is dated 2022, titled Interior Design Investment Cooperation for Lake Norman Property. I remember signing it. Lena had insisted it would formalize her design expenses for better tax reporting. Look at the appendix. Brent says his finger tapping on a clause nestled between paragraphs about material sourcing and contractor requirements. I lean in, reading aloud. Lena Rourke reserves the right to present project details to third parties for professional investment consultation. My voice sounds hollow even to my own ears. What the hell does that even mean? Brent's face is grim. It means she created a legal pathway to share your property details and project data with Miles Hartman without technically violating your confidentiality agreement. This one clause buried in 20 pages of boilerplate gave her permission to leak everything. I've been set up for 3 years, I whisper, sinking into one of Brent's leather chairs. Since before we even broke ground on the lake house. There's more, Brent says, sliding another stack of papers toward me. My team found evidence that Lena has been sending regular emails from a secondary account to an address at Dominion Strategy, a subsidiary of Hartman's operations that specializes in competitive market analysis. The picture becomes clearer, each revelation like another piece clicking into a horrific puzzle. So Troy is likely just sexual bait. Brent finishes my thought. A distraction while Miles gets what he really wants. Insider information about your business strategies, investment plans, client lists. I pull up my calendar on my phone, scrolling back through the past year. Lena started her creative retreats at the lake house frequently, right after my lawsuit against Miles concluded in early 2023. The one where I'd narrowly prevented him from stealing a development project I'd spent 2 years setting up. Coincidence? Brent raises an eyebrow. Not a chance. I say, the rage building again. She's been his spy the whole time. The affair with Troy is just, what a bonus, a way to further humiliate me. Brent taps his pen against the desk, his thinking pose. We need to go bigger with our response. It's not just about cutting off Lena anymore. We need to take down Dominion RE completely. Miles has been using your wife as a corporate espionage tool. That's criminal. How, I ask. Miles is too careful. He's insulated himself behind Lena and Troy. Brent's smile is cold. By finding someone who knows exactly how Miles operates. Someone who has every reason to want him destroyed. He pauses for effect. His ex-wife. Vivian Clark. I've heard the name in business circles. They divorced, 6 months ago? 7. Brent corrects. And it wasn't pretty. Miles left her with almost nothing, a violation of their prenup that she couldn't afford to fight properly in court. She was an investment strategist at Dominion before they married. After the divorce, she's been freelancing, rebuilding her reputation. And you think she'd help us? I know she would. She's been waiting for someone with the resources and motivation to take Miles down. I can arrange a meeting. 3 days later, I'm standing at the annual Charlotte Real Estate Investment Network Gala. At the Ritz-Carlton, crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow across the ballroom as Charlotte's elite mingle, trading business cards and barely concealed ambitions. I'm there as an honored guest. My recent development project downtown had won accolades for innovative, sustainable design. I'm midway through a conversation with the city planning commissioner. When I feel a presence at my elbow, I turn to find a tall woman with impeccable posture. Her dark hair pulled back in a sleek knot that emphasizes her sharp cheekbones and even sharper gaze. Her black dress is understated but clearly expensive. The kind of outfit that whispers rather than shouts about wealth. Mr. Whitmore, she says, extending a hand with a half smile that doesn't reach her eyes. I'm Vivian Clark. You're the only man who's ever made Miles lose sleep 3 nights in a row. Her handshake is firm, her eyes assessing me with the cool calculation of someone who's spent years measuring risk and return. Is that a compliment, Ms. Clark? I ask. She hands me her business card. Vivian Clark, investment strategist, freelancer. The card is heavy stock, minimalist design quality. Brent Holloway mentioned you might be interested in a conversation. I say, keeping my voice casual as we drift toward a quieter corner of the room. She takes a sip of champagne, her eyes never leaving mine. Let's not waste time with pleasantries, Mr. Whitmore. I understand you have a Miles Hartman problem. As it happens, so do I. Do you really want to collaborate with me? I ask directly. Or is this just another angle I don't see yet? The question doesn't offend her. If anything, she seems to approve of my directness. I don't want to collaborate, she says, her voice dropping to ensure privacy. I want to absolutely destroy him with you. I study her face, looking for tells for the micro-expressions that might reveal deception. I've learned the hard way how easy it is to miss these signs when you want to believe someone. I'm interested. I tell her, but I don't trust you yet. She actually laughs at this, a genuine sound that transforms her face momentarily. Good. You shouldn't. Trust is earned, especially after what you've been through. She finishes her champagne. Test me however you need to. Mr. Whitmore, I'll be waiting. And that's exactly what I do. The next day, I have Brent prepare a fake investment prospectus for a new development in South Park, complete with convincing but entirely fabricated details about financing timelines and potential investors. I send it to Vivian with a note saying I'm considering the project and value her input. A week passes. I monitor my industry contacts, waiting for any hint that the information has leaked. Nothing. The document remains confidential. Meanwhile, Brent confirms through his sources that Vivian's story checks out. Miles had indeed left her with almost nothing in the divorce, despite a prenup that should have protected her assets. She'd managed to hold on to a small savings account and her professional reputation, but little else. I begin to believe we might actually have a genuine ally. When we meet next, it's at my office after hours. Vivian arrives precisely on time, carrying a slim portfolio and wearing the focused expression of someone ready for battle. I did some homework, she says, laying out documents across my conference table. 9 investors have quietly pulled out of Dominion in the last year, all of them citing strategic differences publicly, while privately telling contacts they couldn't trust the numbers anymore. She points to another file. 4 of Miles' properties are in limbo, approved but unfunded for redevelopment. He's overextended, trying to maintain appearances. She taps a final document. And this lakefront project, I personally helped kill it from the inside before I left, by pointing out critical flaws in the environmental impact assessment to the Wright County Commissioner. I lean back, impressed, despite myself. You really do want to bury him. He took 6 years of my life and tried to erase my professional existence. She says simply, so yes, I want him gone. That evening we form Clark Whitmore Holdings, a new entity with no obvious connection to either of us, through a series of shell companies Brent helps establish. Our initial strategy is surgical: quietly approach each investor who left Dominion, offering them a stake in projects with safe capital double returns and no Dominion connection. Within 2 weeks, we've secured commitments from 3 of the 9 former investors. The groundwork is laid, the trap beginning to form around Miles without him even realizing he's being hunted. After our first formal strategy meeting in the new company's nondescript offices, Vivian asks me to stay behind the others file out, leaving us alone in the conference room overlooking the Charlotte skyline, now twinkling with lights as dusk settles over the city. She opens her briefcase and removes a small digital recorder, placing it on the table between us. I have something you need to hear, she says quietly. It's a recording of Lena on a call with Miles from 3 months ago. She wasn't just selling you out, she was planning to take the Whitmore Capital brand. My blood runs cold. How did you get this? Miles recorded all his calls. Force of habit, I acquired certain files before I left. She doesn't elaborate, and I don't ask. Some stones are better left unturned. She presses play. The sound quality is excellent, clear enough that Lena's voice is unmistakable. The casual confidence in her tone making my skin crawl. I'm wearing Dylan down. My wife's voice says through the speaker. When he steps aside, the brand will be mine and Troy's to control. Miles' chuckle floats through the recorder, a sound I remember from boardroom confrontations years ago. And the property portfolio. Moving piece by piece, just like we discussed. He still trusts me with everything. I sit motionless as the recording continues, detailing how they planned to systematically dismantle my company from within, using my own wife as the Trojan horse who would deliver everything I'd built into Miles's waiting hands. When it ends, the silence in the room feels physical, pressing against my ears. Vivian doesn't offer platitudes or sympathy. She simply waits, giving me space to process what I've heard. Thank you. I finally say, my voice steadier than I expected. This changes everything. She nods once. Now we know exactly what we're fighting. Not just infidelity or simple theft, but a calculated takeover attempt. I stand looking out at the city I've helped shape with my investments. My city, the one they thought they could take from me. Miles made a critical mistake. I say, "What's that?" Vivian asks. I turn back to face her, feeling something cold and focused settle into my chest. He should have killed me instead of trying to steal from me. Because now I'm going to take everything. Back in my office, I play the full recording Vivian provided. The conference room is empty except for me, the recording device, and a bottle of 18-year-old scotch I've been saving for a meaningful occasion. This seems appropriate. I press play again, needing to hear every word to understand the full extent of their plan. Lena's voice fills the room, clear and confident, a tone I once found captivating, but now sounds predatory. Troy is an idiot, but he's easy to control, she says with a laugh that makes my hand tighten around my glass. I just need him to keep Dylan distracted. Meanwhile, I'll collect the assets according to the Miles method. Miles responds with the self-satisfied tone I remember from our board meetings years ago. Just push him to the breaking point. I'll give you exactly the position you want. I slam my hand onto the desk, the sound echoing through the empty room. The anger burning inside me isn't about the betrayal I've processed, that it's about being underestimated. They thought I would break. They thought I would crumble, retreat, surrender everything I've built because of emotional devastation. They mistook my discipline for weakness, my silence for acceptance, my focus for blindness. The next morning, Vivian and I divide our battlefields. I'll handle Lena through legal channels, media exposure, and asset recovery. I tell her, laying out my approach. We need to isolate her completely. Vivian nods. I'll focus on Miles' internal operations, investor confidence, market reputation. I still have contacts who owe me favors. Brent joins our war council with a stack of legal documents. We've prepared the lawsuit against Lena for conspiracy to commit financial fraud, intellectual property theft, and unauthorized data transfer. It's airtight, especially with the recordings as evidence. Simultaneously, I reach out to a contact at the Charlotte Business Journal, a financial reporter who's been suspicious of Dominion RE's accounting practices for years. I don't give him everything, just enough breadcrumbs about financial irregularities to start him digging in the right places. The effects begin to show within days. Lena's financial world collapses like a house of cards. Her access to all accounts is terminated. Her credit score plummets as fraud alerts appear across her financial profile. Landlords reject her rental applications after simple background checks reveal pending litigation. She begins couch surfing with old friends, design school connections, former clients. But one by one, they cut her off as the story spreads through Charlotte's tight-knit design community. The narrative isn't just about a wife cheating on her husband. It's about a professional who betrayed a client, stole proprietary information, and committed financial fraud. Her reputation becomes toxic. All that remains are a few desperate social media posts, begging for a second chance, claiming she's been misunderstood. I watch her digital meltdown with clinical detachment, noting how quickly her friends distance themselves once her value as a connection evaporates. Meanwhile, Troy Maddox proves himself the coward I suspected him to be. Brent hires a private investigator who tracks Troy's hasty retreat first to Orlando, then on to Puerto Rico, where he's detained at the airport due to an alert we placed regarding suspected money laundering through shell companies. I file a legal authorization requesting a freeze on all accounts associated with Troy throughout the United States. The young man who strutted around my lake house, drinking my wine and wearing my clothes, now cannot access a single dollar from TM Holdings. As for Miles Hartman, he faces Vivian's calculated vengeance. She sends meticulously documented reports to 4 major investors who had previously backed Dominion RE projects, proving financial misrepresentations and deliberately inflated projections. The evidence is irrefutable, taken directly from internal documents she had quietly copied before her exit. All 4 investors withdraw their capital within 10 days. Dominion's stock drops 17% in 2 weeks. The whispers grow louder in investment circles. Something is wrong at Hartman's company. Miles calls Vivian repeatedly. She declines every call but forwards me a voicemail. He leaves at 2 a.m. "You don't touch what's mine." His voice slurs slightly. Tension, evident in every syllable. "What are you without the Hartman name anyway?" Vivian's response, which she texts him and copies to me, is perfect in its simplicity. "I'm the last person you should have underestimated." As our revenge unfolds with mathematical precision, Vivian and I develop a partnership built on mutual respect and shared purpose. One weekend evening, we meet at a rooftop bar overlooking the city. The lights of Charlotte spread before us like a carpet of stars, including buildings I've developed and properties that Miles once thought he could steal. Vivian sips her martini, looking thoughtful. "You know what?" she says, turning to me. "I used to think I was weak for forgiving him so many times. Now I realize I'm strong because I finally stopped." I nod, understanding exactly what she means. They mistook our silence for weakness, but silence is just the sound of someone taking aim. We clink glasses, two people who found strength in the ashes of betrayal, who transformed pain into purpose. The next morning, I wake to a text from Vivian with an attachment. When I open it, I find detailed architectural plans for a development called Riverside Commons, a project Miles has been quietly preparing to launch in an attempt to restore Dominion's reputation. Her message reads, "Guess what happens if we buy this property 24 hours before he announces?" I smile for the first time in weeks. A genuine smile, the kind that comes from justice approaching. Then we're attending Dominion RE's funeral. As I study the plans more carefully, I recognize the location. A prime riverfront property that Miles had been eyeing for years, but could never secure the funding to develop. Now with his company floundering, he's desperate enough to risk everything on this one project. It's his Hail Mary pass, and we're about to intercept it. Set up the shell companies. I text Vivian. I'll have the capital ready by morning. I pour myself a cup of coffee and look out over the city. The sun rises over Charlotte, casting long shadows from the buildings I've helped create. In those shadows, Miles and Lena thought they could operate undetected, stealing what I'd built piece by piece. They never understood the fundamental rule of real estate and of life. Location matters. Timing matters. And picking the right opponent matters most of all. They chose poorly. The architectural plans for Miles's desperate salvation attempt spread across my conference table like a battlefield map. Vivian stands beside me, pointing out the details of what was supposed to be Miles's triumphant comeback Silver Ridge, a $40 million mixed-use development on Charlotte's outskirts. This was his white whale. Vivian explains, tracing the property boundaries with her fingertip. He's been after this land for years. The project was shelved 18 months ago due to funding issues, but he's convinced his board this will restore investor confidence. I study the renderings, ambitious design, premium materials, sustainable elements clearly meant to generate press coverage and industry awards. He's put everything into this. Vivian continues, his remaining capital, his connections, his reputation. If this fails, he fails. I finish our plan forms with the precision of master chess players. We create a fictional Canadian investment firm, Maple Summit Ventures, with Brent building the legal framework through several layers of shell companies. All roads lead back to Clark Whitmore Holdings. But the path is so convoluted that even dedicated investigators would need weeks to untangle it. I make the initial contact with the landowners, representing myself as Maple Summit's acquisition director. My offer exceeds their asking price by 12%, enough to be irresistible, but not suspicious enough to trigger prolonged negotiations. Why so eager to buy, the main property owner asks during our meeting. I give him the rehearsed answer. Toronto developers see Charlotte as undervalued. We're moving quickly before others recognize the opportunity. Simultaneously, Vivian activates connections within Charlotte's planning department. Brent's former law school roommate now serves on the City Planning Commission. A few strategic dinners, golf games, and charitable donations. Later, our permitting process accelerates dramatically. What should take months compresses into days. The landowners accept our offer. Paperwork moves with unprecedented speed. And within 48 hours, Clark Whitmore Holdings controls the entire Silver Ridge property parcel. One day before Miles planned to announce his project. The timing is surgical. We wait until Miles has already scheduled his press conference, sent out invitations to investors and media, and prepared his grand unveiling. Then precisely 3 hours before his announcement, we drop our bomb. Clark Whitmore Holdings issues a press release unveiling Whitmore Vista, a larger, more ambitious development on the exact Silver Ridge location. Our announcement includes preliminary approvals already secured from the Planning Commission, architect renderings, and a construction timeline starting in 30 days. The financial press descends like vultures. The Charlotte Business Journal runs the headline, Hartman's Silver Ridge Dreams Snatched in Daylight Heist. Bloomberg picks up the story with Dominion RE blindsided as former spouse claims prime development site. Miles's press conference transforms from a resurrection announcement into a crisis management nightmare. Reporters bombard him with questions about how he failed to secure the property, whether he misled investors about the project's readiness, and if Dominion has the capital to survive this setback. his composure finally cracks. Appearing on a popular business podcast 2 days later, his voice rises as he discusses the situation. "This is corporate sabotage," he fumes. "Vivian Clark had confidential information about our strategies. She violated her separation agreements. She's using information she had no right to access." Then comes the threat. "She'll regret crossing me. I built her career. I can destroy it just as easily." Brent records every word, filing immediate harassment counterclaims with the SEC and adding the statements to our growing case against Miles. While Miles's empire begins to crumble, Lena's world has already collapsed completely. A hand-delivered letter arrives at my office. The envelope wrinkled, the handwriting shaky and unfamiliar, until I realize it's Lena's writing without her usual confident flourish. "I only thought things would be different," she writes. "I never believed you would actually do this." Enclosed is a photo showing her sitting on a bench outside a free legal aid center. Her hair unkempt, dark circles under her eyes, wearing clothes I've never seen before, clearly secondhand, clearly not the designer wardrobe she once insisted upon. Brent confirms that Lena has been placed on a federal financial watch list due to her connection with TM Holdings' money laundering activities. Her credit is destroyed. She can't secure loans, rent apartments, or even open new bank accounts. Former friends avoid her calls. Design clients have blacklisted her name. The woman who thought she could take everything from me now relies on the charity of strangers. I feel no satisfaction looking at her photo, just a hollow recognition of justice served. I place the letter in my shredder without responding. Troy Maddox fares no better. After fleeing to Puerto Rico, he's detained when trying to board a boat to the Dominican Republic. His passport has expired, and federal authorities have placed a hold on him as a person of interest in an ongoing money laundering investigation. Local news captures video of him being handcuffed, his designer clothes rumpled, his carefully styled hair a disheveled mess. The footage goes viral within financial circles, shared with captions about karma and the dangers of targeting the wrong victim. I watch the video once. I don't smile. For someone like Troy, who traded on his looks and charm, who thought he could take shortcuts to wealth, this ending seems almost too gentle. But Miles Hartman's downfall becomes a masterpiece orchestrated primarily by Vivian. Through an anonymous former Dominion accountant, she acquires and releases documents proving illegal internal money transfers, funds moved between projects to mask losses and inflate profits. I stand beside her in my office as the financial news breaks across every screen. Dominion RE under federal investigation for accounting irregularities. Hartman asked to step down as CEO pending SEC investigation. Dominion shares plummet 58% in worst week since founding. We moved to the Kimpton Hotel's rooftop bar on the 40th floor, ordering a bottle of Dom Perignon, the same champagne Lena and Troy had drunk in my lake house. From this height, Charlotte's financial district stretches before us, a constellation of lit windows, where crisis meetings about Dominion's future are undoubtedly underway. The digital ticker on a nearby building scrolls financial news in red letters announcing Dominion's continued stock decline. Vivian raises her glass to consequences. I clink my glass against hers, to underestimating the wrong people. Over the next 6 months, our collaboration turns into something deeper. Vivian and I work together daily, rebuilding what others tried to destroy, creating something new from the ashes of betrayal. She understands loss in a way few others can, the particular pain of having your trust weaponized against you. One evening at her apartment, soft lighting casting shadows across her living room, she looks at me with those perceptive eyes that miss nothing. "You don't need to prove anything anymore, Dylan," she says, her voice softer than I've ever heard it. "They know. Now you just need to live like the victor you are." I nod, understanding the wisdom in her words. "Victory isn't about them losing," I reply. "It's about me refusing to forgive myself for being blind." She moves closer, her hand finding mine. Not from need or desperation, but from recognition. Two people who have walked through fire and emerged stronger. The following morning, Brent strides into my office, tossing a thick folder onto my desk with a satisfied grin. "Congratulations," he says. "The Whitmore Capital brand is now valued at 5 times what it was when Lena left." And he pauses for effect. "I just rejected an acquisition offer from Miles Hartman himself. I lean back in my chair, letting the full circle of justice sink in. The man who tried to steal everything from me now wants to buy what's left of his career with my success. What did you tell him? I ask, already knowing the answer. Brent's smile turns wolfish. I told him the price just tripled and that you'd need his request in writing, preferably with an apology attached. I laugh for what feels like the first time in months. Not from joy exactly, but from the pure satisfaction of knowing that in the game Miles started, I've delivered the checkmate. 1 week after Miles's desperate offer to buy what he couldn't steal, I receive a notification from the security system at the lake house. It's 11:47 p.m. and Lena is finally leaving. Not just the property, but my life entirely. I watch through the camera feed as she emerges from the front door, a single small suitcase in hand. Gone are the designer clothes and confident stride. Her shoulders slump forward, her movements slow and defeated, but it's her eyes that catch my attention. Hollow, empty like windows to an abandoned house. No taxi waits at the end of the driveway. No friend stands ready to provide shelter. The security lights cast harsh shadows across the lawn as she pauses, turning back to place one hand against the wooden doorframe. The gesture seems almost reverent, as though she's saying goodbye to a life she now understands she never deserved. Then she turns away, walking down the path toward the main road, her elongated shadow trailing behind her under the street lamps. The camera follows her until she disappears into the darkness beyond the property line. I close the feed, feeling nothing but a quiet sense of completion. The next day, I instruct Brent to put the lake house on the market. The memories there, both real and falsified, hold no value anymore. It sells within a week for $2.8 million, the proceeds transferring directly to Whitmore Capital's main account. The property that was once the stage for my greatest betrayal becomes another asset on a spreadsheet. Nothing more, nothing less. In the weeks that follow, I move into a new penthouse on Tryon Street in the heart of Charlotte's financial district. Every item I bring is new or carefully selected from my pre-Lena life. Nothing that crossed her path makes the journey to my new home. It's not sentiment or pain, driving this decision, just a practical desire for clean foundations. My mornings develop a new rhythm. Colombian coffee still starts my day, but now I enjoy it on a balcony overlooking the cityscape I've helped shape. I don't think about Lena during these quiet moments. Her absence isn't a presence. It's simply nothing. Vivian visits occasionally. We never defined what we became after our revenge partnership transformed. No labels, no commitments. Just two people who understand each other in ways others never could. Survivors together. I like what you've done with the place. She comments one morning, joining me for coffee. It feels like you. I realize she's right. For years, my home had been a compromise. Lena's design sensibilities softening my preferences for clean lines and functionality. Now the space reflects exactly who I am, unfiltered through someone else's vision. Whitmore Capital thrives in ways I couldn't have predicted. The publicity surrounding the Silver Ridge acquisition and the subsequent fall of Dominion RE positions us as the dominant force in Charlotte's luxury property market. New investors approach weekly, drawn to the company that outmaneuvered Miles Hartman at his own game. 6 months after everything began, the regional Forbes features me on their cover. The headline reads, "The man who rebuilt an empire from ashes and burned those who lit the fire." The article details my professional resurrection without a single mention of Lena. She has been erased from the narrative of my success, as though she never existed in this world. 8 weeks later, an email arrives from an unfamiliar address. Leonard Ork, New Start, Ijmail.com. The subject line reads simply, "Just 5 minutes." I hover over it, curiosity briefly flickering before rational thought returns. Opening the message would only reintroduce her into my life, even in this minimal way. Instead, I read the preview text visible in my inbox. "I don't expect your forgiveness. I just have nowhere left to go. I was wrong, Dylan. I know that now." My hand rests on the trackpad, and with a single click, I delete the message. No reading further, no response, no acknowledgement. In that moment, I realized the greatest power isn't in revenge, but in this, the ability to deny someone even the smallest space in your world. The next day, a legal colleague sends me a copy of Troy's handwritten statement from the Federal Detention Center where he awaits trial. His once perfect penmanship now slants irregularly across the page. I didn't know she was planning something so big. I thought she really loved me. I fold the paper and feed it into the office incinerator, watching the edges curl and blacken. She did. I murmur to the flames. If you were worth more than $153,000. Months pass, seasons change. The new Whitmore Vista development breaks ground where Miles once dreamed of salvation. Life moves forward with the steady, unstoppable momentum of time itself. One unplanned evening. Vivian joins me on the penthouse balcony. We stand side by side at the railing, looking out at the Charlotte skyline. Lights twinkle in buildings where deals are made, lives are changed, fortunes rise and fall. Somewhere in that maze of glass and steel, Miles is still trying to rebuild from ruins. Somewhere else, perhaps Lena is starting over with a different name, a different story. You don't need revenge anymore, Vivian says softly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. You are what makes them panic in silence. I nod, understanding completely. And you are what makes them underestimate the wrong hand. She smiles, the expression holding more warmth than calculation. Now we've both evolved beyond the people who started this journey. Not softer perhaps, but more complete in ourselves. I don't forgive, I don't regret. I don't need apologies, because what I reclaimed is worth more than all of it myself. My authority, my right to choose who enters my life. They once thought I was too civilized to fight back, too disciplined to lose control, too principled to seek vengeance. What they never understood is that I wasn't weak, I was waiting. Calculating, preparing to strike with surgical precision when they least expected it. Lena Rourke Troy, Maddox, Miles Hartman. They didn't lose because I was strong. They lost because I stopped being soft. In the end, the lesson wasn't about betrayal or revenge, it was about boundaries. About understanding that sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is not forgiveness, but consequence. About recognizing that trust, once fundamentally broken, doesn't deserve the honor of reconstruction. The world sees my success as a remarkable comeback story. Only a handful of people know the truth, that sometimes the most powerful response to betrayal isn't an immediate explosion of rage, but the patient, methodical dismantling of everything the betrayers thought they could take. As I stand on my balcony alone, watching the city lights below, I no longer feel anger when thinking about what happened. Instead, I feel something more valuable, complete indifference. They have become footnotes in my story, rather than authors of my downfall. And that more than any financial victory or public vindication is the true freedom no one can ever take away.